Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. Can we turn things around? We'll find out. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and just tell me what they do all day and let me record how this affects us. Thank you for listening. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, first of all, hi Simon.
Hello.
Okay, so it's quite a tricky question. So both my folks are doctors for the NHS, etc. I'll probably touch on one of them later on. And so my mum always told me, she said, don't become a doctor because there's too much work, not enough pay, etc., etc. So I kind of went through my education not really knowing what I wanted to do, but just not, and I was a terrible student. I mean, I'm dyslexic, which I didn't find out until 2017. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily my bag. But if I wanted to be anything when I was growing up, I don't know, just to have fun. That's the honest truth. I never really had a set goal.
Yeah.
Never had a set goal. But when I because I always assumed I would go to university because my parents had quite a lot of education. Then at that point, I was going to study business because I couldn't think of anything else to do. And my mum said, you like geology. Why don't you do that? You've got to do it for 3 years. You've got to be interested in it. You enjoy it. Do that. So I studied geology, and that basically kicked me off in a certain direction, which, led to where I am now.
You're listening to Series 5, Episode 3, and to my guest, Farakh Masood. This is another in-person interview recorded at Helix in Leeds University on the 10th of January 2024. Farakh Masood is the founder of True Green Energy. Farakh's vision is to assist SMEs and corporates, including the oil and gas, mining and renewable sectors, in achieving a socially responsible and environmentally sustainable transition to a circular economy. In today's dynamic business landscape, Farakh firmly believes that business objectives are fluid and subject to change. It is imperative that they remain adaptable to our evolving environment, assess available resources, and strategically determine the most suitable courses of action. Farakh has a track record of delivering success. He has effectively collaborated with organizations and individuals across all continents, navigating diverse cultural and linguistic contexts. Right, let's do this. Episode 113 of Working Hours with Farakh Masood. Okay, so we'll jump straight into that. So what is it that you are doing now?
Okay, so I'm the founding director of a company called True Green Energy Group. Now, what we do is we in essence, are furthering a just energy transition agenda. Now, we do that in several ways. We do consulting for carbon calculators and potential carbon offsetting, but ethical carbon offsetting. We also help commercialize and internationalize people with novel IP, be it in wind farm monitoring techniques or be it new power generation techniques. And so help those through that journey through sort of access to investment, and also markets and the commercial awareness that goes along with it.
Okay.
So right now it's kind of a group of companies that I'm working directly in over several different platforms and ideas, but everything is to further a just energy transition. That's the overarching game plan in however we can do that.
Yeah. So I'll touch on this now, but we might go back to it later. It sounds to me then that's being designed. So it's basically a green business from the ground up. It's been designed.
Correct. Yeah.
So obviously your number one priority as a business is to make money, but
not a charity.
Yeah.
However, having said that, now because of this overarching to further the agenda, we do quite a lot of pro bono work. So, I certainly didn't charge. I've been invited to the House of Lords to speak on net zero and digitization and things like that. So, there's a lot of work that I'll do for free because it benefits the overall agenda.
Yeah.
And it benefits the education agenda. So in that way, yes, it's there to make money. Of course, the core business is to make money, always. But more importantly, if the company's sincere about trying to further the agenda in everything we do, whether it be paid or not, it all benefits the company anyway.
Yeah.
So if we help the education on how one can be, on carbon activism training or something along those lines, do that for free. But ultimately, let's say in 10 years' time, hopefully those people will become customers. So for me, it is about furthering that agenda and trying to educate in a manner which is pragmatic. Because my background is also engineering, with several other sort of touches, but we'll come to that, I guess. It's about trying to fix what works or do things that can make an immediate difference instead of pie in the sky. It's like, okay, how can we fix this problem right now? And therefore, if it is through education, I'd try and make people understand what the basic intrinsic things are that matter to climate change or to sustainability. And with that, whether it is an immediate payback doesn't matter to me personally. Although obviously I have cost centers where I've got consultants who they work directly for, an income. But for me personally, as long as it's furthering that agenda, I'm happy to do the work.
Okay, so I might come back with some additional questions on that, but we'll go into how you got into it first. So how did it come about? How did you get into this?
Right, so I started my career, I did industrial geology, then studied mining engineering. I've worked for, at the time, a company called BHP, I worked on the second largest copper producing mine in the world in South America. Then did a few more bits of sort of mining, but then went into drilling services in the oil industry. Worked for one of the largest oil services or drilling services companies. With both of those starter companies, if you like, I was on a sort of management fast track. So covered a lot of bases, all the production lines, and so kind of got a really good understanding of it. Then we had an oil crash, I think, and I kind of decided to do an MBA. I could have done it at work, but it was 5 years, and I thought, I'll just take a year out. Oil prices down, what the hell. Yeah. So I did an MBA here, actually, at University of Leeds. Then realised I probably could never work for anyone again while I was doing that. But at the end of my MBA, I was diagnosed with stage 4 testicular teratoma with lung, liver, and bone involvement. So consequently, I handed in my dissertation 1 year late to the day, but at least I handed it in. Got my MBA, and that was obviously quite a setback. That was when I was 29. And so that was a period of, obviously transition, and it was quite difficult. But so in the recovery process of that, when I was doing the MBA, my friends and I had set up a little consultancy company that was at the time of the sort of 99, 2000, so just before the internet bubble burst. And we were working with an incubator to assess new businesses that wanted to get into the digital market space, etc., etc.
Right, yeah.
So we kind of at the end of that, obviously I had to stop working because I was ill. But after my sort of a couple of years of recovery, then I turned the consultancy, got my friends to consult me and say, what do you want to do? As in, because I really didn't know. I had completely open space. So because I liked aesthetic and design and things, I ended up starting a company which was for UK designers. So young UK designers, furniture and homeware.
Right.
They would design the products. We would take them under contract. I would have them manufactured over the seas, and then export it internationally. So, for example, like places like Bergdorf Goodman in London, and New York, Selfridges in London, Lane-Crawford in Hong Kong, and untold amount of boutiques. I think we used to export to around about 30 odd countries. So I did that for around about 13 years, or maybe 15 years. Then moved into a sort of more of a kind of went back to my roots a little bit after having done that for quite some time. Got married and started working in sort of raw material export.
Okay.
I know that's a complete change in pace, but
I mean, you were shipping internationally anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're
exactly.
moving stuff around the world.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it kind of fit. So then did that for a little while, got divorced and then stopped doing that. But it was still quite interesting. So after the divorce, after having spent a lot of time and with business, with lawyers, etc., I kind of decided to study law because it was something I always found interesting. And that working because I find something interesting has pretty much been a continuous path throughout my career, because if I find it interesting, I usually like to know more about it. I did a graduate diploma in law at MMU and was on the way to becoming a criminal barrister, but we had COVID.
Yeah.
So I put a bit of a break on things. But that was something that it was such an eye-opener. I managed to work with some amazing people on, national cases, and it was a real eye-opener. Now, we had COVID, and towards the end of COVID, a friend of mine was interviewing for a job, or was thinking about working for a company. And he asked me to just do a bit of due diligence and have a chat with him. So I chatted to the chap who owned this company. And this leads into your Brexit question in a way. So he had a SaaS system that I thought would be perfect for the mining industry. Now, because I went to Camborne School of Mines in Exeter University, my network of mining bots, and because I worked in the industry a little bit, is really quite good. And I said to him, we could launch this into the Australian market. It would be perfect. So during the end of COVID, we did that. And in order to do that, I had to set up a company, but that was just so I could do that consultancy.
Yeah.
But then that led to me setting up a company which was based here at Nexus on the university campus. And we started by doing ESG reporting and metrics, etc. But then by the end of that, before I exited, which was just last February, we were giving road mapping to governments in Central Asia and the Middle East. So that company changed quite markedly from when I started just helping a mate out to what it ended up being. I left that company last year, Feb, and set up True Green Energy Group with more of an onus, not so much working in the oil and mining sector as I was doing previously, but more as some way of, as I said previously, just furthering that energy transition agenda. And I use the Greenpeace definition of a just energy transition agenda in that wording.
Which is,
well, okay, it's so that yes, we need to transition into a reduction of carbon across the globe, of course, but we cannot allow that to. We need to take into consideration, which is part of the just element, the societal effects of that change. So it's no good putting a whole bunch of people out of work, but still getting to net zero.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's about retraining, it's about education. That just element, those societal aspects are just as important as the, let's say, engineering-y solutions aspect of that, the transition. So we can give, where do we get the engineers from who to drill geothermal wells? We get them from the oil industry. So we retrain so that people continue having their jobs, because that's just as important. Because suddenly, I mean, even with the advent of AI, with the advent of so many new technologies, if we don't consider the societal aspect of what we're doing as a whole, then we're letting down society as a whole as well. I believe, personally.
Yeah. Well, you can't just put loads and loads of people out of work at once without there being some kind of social upheaval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to at least consider what you're doing and how you're doing it. And on the societal effects, for example, you look at things like Mauritius, because sea level increased, that they've basically been wiped out. But then, not just that, you have to think about how can we, because they're mainly based on tourism, their income, how do we do that, but in a sustainable manner? How do we still get people? There's such it's such a nebulous subject of so many different parts that impact the idea of net zero, or the idea of transitioning to in order to reduce carbon and try and sequester it, maybe, but at least reduce the production of carbon. That if you don't take it into account, you are missing, I feel, a major aspect of what would be an energy transition. And it is something that we're going to have to do. Unfortunately, in the UK, we are, I believe, very behind the curve. In fact, as mentioned earlier, I was at the House of Lords on this, this was about 10, 12 months ago. I was at the House of Lords for this net zero and digitisation think tank. And at that time, we spoke to some MPs. In fact, they gave a speech. I can't remember whoever the current Secretary of State was at the time, to be honest with you. I don't remember.
Change every 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So they gave a speech, and I remember sitting there in this room, and it was from an SME standpoint. And I just turned to the person next to me and I went, they're going to drop net zero. That's what they're fishing for. They're looking for us to justify the rationale for them to drop a net zero agenda. And they didn't get that response from the group of people that were there. And I unfortunately said to the MP at the time, I said, unfortunately for you, I have worked in the oil and mining industry. If you drop this agenda, it's going to cause trouble down the road. And you're putting us even further back behind the curve that we're already way behind the curve on anyway, for sustainability and, energy transition. But, no one listened to me. It's fine. Doesn't matter. But, it's just, you can see when the writing's on the wall, but I'm getting political now, so I'll move on.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's within the realms of your work, so.
Yeah. Well, it matters, because I've worked with Central Asian countries, for example, let's say Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, they have a goal, and they know how they want to get there, and they're doing what they have to do to get there. And they're doing it, they're reverse engineering it. They know where they want to be, and they're working out now how to transition to be that ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, we don't necessarily do that. We
don't like to plan.
Linearly move forward, trying to flip-flop and figure out whatever's, flavor of the month, or flavor of the week, flavor of the day. And that's without that vision, you can't succeed. I believe you won't succeed. I'm happy to be proved wrong. But I believe without that vision, without that goal, without that driver of an individual, be it president, be it whatever, it's going to be very difficult to actually have an impact and make a difference. On the environment, I should say.
But collectively as well, like for the whole thing, it's sort of like you said, there's no destination, there's no goal, there's no given purpose. So we'll jump into questions, and then I might delve back into things a bit more,
of course,
as we go through or towards the end. So I'll jump straight into COVID. You mentioned COVID briefly. What I want to look at here is, as we went into lockdown, what was your experience of that? So it seems to be either a huge increase in work because you're ringing around all your customers, or they're ringing you and like, what's happening? What's going on? So you're working all the time, or it fell off a cliff and you weren't doing anywhere.
No, it totally fell off a cliff. I was basically unemployed. And then when my friend at the end of COVID asked me to do that thing for him, I was like, yeah, fine, do it. And that actually turned into an opportunity. But then this also mixes into your Brexit question, interestingly enough. So the company I was working for at the time, I'm not going to mention who they were, but when Brexit happened, it wiped off. They turned over £200 million a year, and then after Brexit, their expected turnover was 15 million. Wow. Or 35 million, I think. Something along those lines. I can't remember the exact number.
It's more than three quarters.
Oh, no. I mean, overnight. Overnight, that happened.
Which, again, that means it's not like if you've lost that much of your revenue, your turnover, you can't afford to keep your staff.
Exactly.
So that's people out of work immediately with no retraining plan, no support plan, straight onto universal credit or whatever.
Exactly. And that was sort of an outsourcing business, but it was quite an eye opener that I recall I think it was 2008 when we had a financial crash, I recall, and I remember overnight my production costs went up by 25% overnight, and I was just like, oh, nightmare. But relatively small, agile company, able to work it out. I mean, kind of hit us 2 years afterwards in turnover. But it wasn't. It wasn't
a killer. It was something you could adapt to.
But Brexit was this is a paradigm shift, almost like the paradigm shift of COVID, where, as we were saying earlier, people are used to doing Zoom calling now, and etc. There's a Kuhnian paradigm shift between what happened before and what happened after, and to pretend Brexit wasn't that is, I think, a fallacy.
It kind of got hidden in the mix, though. So Brexit is I mean, we'll go probably straight into that next, but it was a weird one because you had the vote in 2016 and then you just had noise. Like, there was the initial sort of, everyone shut up about Brexit for a bit because they've had the vote. So it was that quiet period for a bit, and then it was just Brexit for years. And then COVID hit, and then it was all COVID, and then Brexit kind of happened in the background of that, and then it was kind of like a non-thing, and nobody talks about it now, but it's like, no, it's here now, and it's having effects.
I remember the effect that happened. It was literally the day after. And the chap I was working with said, "Guess what the fuck's happened?" And that was the answer. That was what happened. That was the direct effect that affected businesses. Maybe his was more exposed than others because he was like a fintechy type company, but that was the real effect that happened. Suddenly they were trying to find offices in Ireland so that they could set up a business. I mean, it was just I want to use the word shit show, but I don't want to swear.
I mean, you're not wrong on it.
But can I say, I mean, during that period, my partner at the time, not now, but partner at the time was PPC for Labour, and so I helped write a few speeches, and the message from the central, well, certainly that element of Labour at the time was, don't talk about Brexit on the doorstep. Don't talk. It's like
don't talk about one of the most significant things that's happening. Well, I mean, it's the same with climate change, though, and COVID's reached that as well. Of like, I don't know where you are on it, but the fact that the conversation about long COVID is very much pushed to the edge and sort of thing. It's like this is a new disease. We have not finished evaluating this and knowing about it. It's still a risk, and just because you've got vaccines, vaccines don't prevent the infections and they don't prevent reinfections.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, we don't talk about that.
It's just look at the shiny thing. Yeah. Now look at the post office, shiny. We're doing something about that. Yeah, shiny. and I think it comes. Okay, so maybe I'm fortunate because the majority of my career has been based internationally. So I kind of look at our media in a bit. I mean, for example, when I used to work overseas a lot, I'd come home and the first thing I would do is watch BBC News and be, oh God, it's not propaganda, it's not, But this is, and then suddenly there was this, and it happened when I was doing that work for my partner's PPC application, and I was just like, oh my God, hold on, I know I witnessed him apologising for something, and I know that it was reported that he didn't, but I was in the room when he actually made that apology. So and that was so shocking and stark that I just, I was saddened by it. I would be honest that something I believe is a national treasure wasn't what I thought it was, and but then now I'm based more in the UK, so I travel less and I see. Yeah, I think I just got a bit of a different opinion from having that progressive change.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't notice, but because it was such a stark reality for me that I suddenly went, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a completely different view of something I thought was absolutely solid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
like turning the heat up on the frog.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me started on BBC News. We mentioned sort of, obviously you started a company through COVID and the lockdown. The other part of the question, I like to look at sort of the changes that have happened or whether there's been any permanent changes in the way that you work coming out of it. Obviously, we mentioned like video calling and conferencing and so on. Has anything else changed for you work-wise? Do you one of the big things
because of what?
Because of COVID.
Oh, because of COVID.
One of the big things that people were talking about a lot, there was all of that discussion of like inclusivity,
maybe.
Yes.
Oh, that one.
I'll put my teeth. And well-being and sort of people being isolated, all that kind of conversation. I mean, obviously you were kind of finished for a bit, but then you started going again. Were you quite good? I mean, you've been through a few jobs at that point. You've got quite a lot of career experience. I mean, how was the adjustment to working from home? And were you good at doing the segmenting time?
I'll tell you what. I think it's kind of interesting. It's great to have that reach with video chat and be able to. I mean, I was launching a product in Australia. We sponsored an event in Australia. Mm-hmm. I was doing video chats at 2:30 in the morning with Australia. Mm-hmm. And that was brilliant.
Yeah.
To be able to do that without actually being able to go there was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Absolutely phenomenal. However, I'm a great believer in sitting with, this is why I prefer to do this podcast in person, sitting with someone, talking, I believe that fosters creativity. I believe that you come up with creative ideas in that environment better than one would do on a video call.
Yeah.
Because you kind of, I always write down in my book on a video call, what do I want out of this call? Oh, is it I want an MOU? Is it that I want them to sign an NDA or something like that? I have something in my mind that I want to achieve, and then I achieve it or don't achieve it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in a room with someone, that kind of goes out the window. You know what you want. Yeah, I'm sitting with a room, and I'd like us to sign an NDA. You and I sign, for example. But hold on, we're talking. We're chatting about how bad the coffee is here or something, or how great the coffee is here. And we come up with a new business idea. So suddenly that NDA is on the back burner. We'll get to it, but let's talk about this other thing which we've developed and created because we're in person. And I'm an absolute believer that creativity only really happens when people are in the same room together. It's just my experience. I could be wrong, but I just feel that.
I mean, I largely agree. I think, like you say, obviously you were able to launch a product on the other side of the world. So you can do it. You have that space to use that tool in that way. But yeah, being in a room with someone is always a different experience. Like I've done a whole bunch of these recorded.
Sure.
And it's great to do. It's really nice because you switch it on, switch it off. I don't have to go home. I don't have to get to a place. And, I know both of us are safe. We don't have to worry about any safeguarding or anything like that. And but it's really nice to meet people in person and speak to them and, get the energy and the conversation. Like you say, it does go differently when you meet someone in person. I think you lose spontaneity and it's a bit harder. It's a bit more of a work experience when you're sort of conferencing online because you're losing that, your mind and your eye has to fill in more information because the quality's not amazing.
You haven't got those micro, because those, what do they call it? Micro indications, body language things.
Yeah, I'm going straight to microaggressions, but they mean like the micro gestures.
Micro gestures, the things, the small things, the way someone's eyes move, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think you lose if you're not in person.
Yeah.
And we've run sort of discovery sessions for companies. I also do a NED role with a digital marketing agency, I should say. And so I've done discovery sessions with their companies, people who want to set up new businesses, totally outside my remit. And online versus in person, it's just, for me, a much more engaging environment. And it's that physical separation. I think I don't know. I mean, I'm not someone who's working for a corporate. I'm not an accountant who's been on online calls every day for the last however long. I'm not that guy. For me, it's a tool I use, but it's not the be all and end all. And most of my things are done because of personal relationships and individual interaction. But I don't. It's great. It's a tool, but it's not my bag. I'd always rather meet someone in person. Especially if they're pitching to me or they're trying to get some investment, trying to do something. I'd always rather just meet. I'd rather look in someo's eye. I know it sounds terrible, but
no, but especially from an investment perspective or whatever, it's it's the getting the measure of someone, and like feeling their presence. Oh, if you want to go to auras or whatever, just to feel the energy of a person in the room and what they're like, because it's very easy on a phone. It's very easy to hide a lot of stuff. And a video call's a bit harder, but you can still do it easy enough. You can hide stuff in person, but generally we make our judgments about people from meeting them, being present with them.
Well, the thing is, I'm a university. I'm a leader in residence here at the university, and so we do work with groups of students and things like that. And so let's say I'm at a table with a group of students, and one of them's being particularly quiet, I will stop everything and say, right, what do you think? Because I want to bring that out of, get as much out of people as I can do. And I think in person, if someone's more relaxed with you, instead of feeling that instant formal setting where you're on a computer screen, you're able to draw the best out of other people as well, that you may not necessarily have got from just a 45-minute, 1 hour Zoom call or Teams chat, whatever. I just think we can't move totally to that line of working.
And I don't think anyone will want to.
I don't think they do either.
I mean, like a lot of the journalism, I use that term broadly.
Well, I was going to say loosely.
that is written about, sort of office work and stuff. You see a lot of stuff about return to the office and get people back in, and everyone just wants to work from home. There's plenty of people that do want to work from home, but in my experience, I've met a number of people post-pandemic who are like, I hate working at home. Because it's like, it's my home.
Yeah.
I don't want my work in there.
You need a work.
I'm on my own.
You need a separation.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, people did the thing of like putting the suit on to go and log in because they need to get into that mental headspace. And for a lot of people, it's that getting up, going into a place that puts, the transition happens there and you get into that headspace.
I very rarely work from home. Very rarely. Because unless I've got some overflow, I need to do something last minute. Because, when I'm at work, 100%. But when I'm not, I am not working. When I'm not working, and I don't, I prefer not to have that barrier displaced. Although, having said that, when you say about there's a lot of go back to work, okay, am I going to come across as a bit of a loon now? I don't know. I'm going to try. Well, we'll see. Well, I'll throw this out there and see what you think. Let's face it, a lot of the fire behind go back to work was done because of commercial property.
Yeah. Okay. Please come and use our offices. We don't want to go bust.
And exactly. And then that pressure was put on government, and that's why they pushed back. I've got to be honest. That's what I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right.
Well, I remember after the crash in 2008. It'd be interesting to see if you remember. So do you remember after the crash, there was a period of time where, the FT were talking about things like, is Marx right? Everything went out of the window for a few months, all sorts of discussions of this, that, and the other. Just to clarify, wasn't Marx's interpretation of a utopia, of the not of communism, but of socialism? It was meant to be implemented once capitalism had gone over the hill, if I'm correct. Not necessarily before capitalism had gone over the hill. Capitalism has to get to that point where everyone's just after self-actualization. Then socialism works. And I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in socialist ideas, and I think I don't care, I think everyone has social responsibility. But that's always a misinterpretation, I believe, where they want to implement socialism now, but no, we're not all reaching for self-actualization. We're not all at the point where money doesn't matter. Hence, you can't implement socialism. But you can be socially, aware and have, regard for one's fellow man. And you can admit that the economy, to a large degree, is planned. And I
think I am going to be coming across as a complete loon, aren't I? Oh, God. Oh, well, there we go. Fine.
Well, I want to get into some of the energy stuff. I get why I brought up the 2008 thing, but I was going to speak about something that I think it was that whole thing of that, they tell you various different stories at different times, but they're not always, again, it's that very easy forgetting of stuff. We only remember what I need to remember. But we'll do Brexit. I know we've touched on it already. For you, for your work, was there a significant change when Brexit occurred?
Okay, directly, luckily no.
Right.
Now, in the sort of oil mining industry, at that time, because obviously I was dealing with Australia, and then after that it was Central Asia, so Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, these countries, Kyrgyzstan, or Kyrgyz Republic, sorry. It didn't affect. However, as an idea of not being European anymore kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting because if we'd have done it properly, I think in 20 years' time we would see the benefit, right? And so in that way, I don't think it would have been a bad thing. However, the way it was done, I think it was terrible. The BS that was spread is just as an idea, I could see with a 20-year game plan, mind you, on a purely economic front. If I'd have had kids then, I would have thought, okay, 20 years' time, they're leaving university. Will the UK be in a better position than it was previously? Potentially, yes, if handled correctly. However, none of that happened. And so therefore I don't believe that, that proposition is correct. And I think the status quo would have been much better, especially just because of the, human rights and having a proper European Court of Appeal, etc., etc. I think from that standpoint, and we put ourselves in a really bad position.
And healing the divisions, people that remain, if there was more happening, they could see stuff happening, they could see like gains or green shoots, they could see something substantive. Then you would get more buy-in. People would be buying in more than they are just digging their heels in.
Of course. I mean, I remember because at that time I was studying law, and I was at the university in MMU, and we'd just come out, and there was a Unitarian Union march happening, so they're all flying the flag and etc. And I was having a fag outside the library in between study sessions, and I remember talking to some of the people there, and I was like, okay, yeah, we've left. Could you just tell me what's your vehicle for rejoining? And they instantly thought that I was actually attacking their point of view. I wasn't. I was actually asking, what's the legal vehicle?
What's your plan?
What's the legal vehicle to get us back into the EU? Because if you've got one, I'm on it.
Yeah.
But I need to understand how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that pragmatic approach. So how can you fix things? How can you actually make a difference to the immediate situation? And if you don't have a plan, or if you don't have a vision, I don't think you can achieve those things.
It's about substance, isn't it? Because everything and we've mentioned this within the conversation, but it's like so much is like Brexit itself. It's like you're buying a brand. Like, what is it? What are you voting for? Leave the EU. Well, what does that mean? Don't know. Nobody does. Like, that's why we spent 4 years having like all these ridiculous arguments that basically got us nowhere.
Yes.
And it's the same with them. Or rejoin. All right, what's the substance of that? Oh, you're attacking me. No, I'm asking what the substance is. I don't want to just buy a brand with nothing that comes with it.
Agreed.
Like no product, nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that those. So to bring it back to sort of the environmental thing and to sustainability in the field that I work in, that there's a lot of hyperbole. I come across people who call themselves ESG consultants and sustainability consultants a lot. And actually, if I meet a company and we go in with a sustainability pitch, or we go in with a carbon calculator pitch or something like that, they will compare us to other companies they've met. And we are almost having to fight an uphill battle because they think sustainability and ESG, it's current zeitgeist, it's bollocks. It's just money for old rope.
Yeah.
because the people that have been and met them before actually don't have substance to what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And don't understand. I worked on and put in place huge solar projects. I know about actually building the thing, about where you need transformers. I get it. I understand all that. Mm-hmm. And then you get, I don't know, and even quite large companies in the sustainability field turn up and they actually don't know what they're talking about. I've talked to these consultants and I've said to them, "Oh, what's your reporting structure? Is it GIR? Is it blah, blah, blah?" Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, well, and because there's no substance to it." And I think that comes across a great deal, especially in this field. As we were talking about, sometimes it's all smoke and mirrors. There's no actual nugget in there, and it's kind of up to us to see through the BS and figure out what is the valid proposition within whatever the idea is or the ideology is that we're looking at. Be it in sustainability, be it in the environment, be it in Brexit, be it in whatever it is. What's the nugget? And I just feel that a lot of the time there isn't one.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's the whole greenwash thing. Like I'm thinking there, as you're saying that, it's because in the marketplace, as any company, if you want a green credential, you literally can just buy one. Yeah. You can make one up.
Yeah.
Stick it on yourself.
Yeah, agreed. No, you can. You can. I've worked with people who are B Corp registered, but I know through personal experience of working with them that
they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So it's just a badge. You want B Corp registration? I'm not having to go at B Corp itself here.
Yes,
but if you want that registration or you want ISO registration, I'm sure there's a company in Cyprus that if I give them 10 grand, they'll get it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's a fact about those badges. So I don't necessarily agree with the badges. I think as a company, you're judged on how you behave and how you interact with people and your sincerity. And that's something that I tried to be as honest and open about as possible and have that sort of, I mean, obviously, we all have working confidential stuff and blah, blah, blah. But, being as open and as transparent as possible when talking to people, working with anyone, I think is the key, because then they can see where your value is, and what you bring to the table, be it creative ideas, be it a solution, be it, a new way of doing something that no one else had thought about, whatever it is. It's trying to navigate those waters, and especially in my field, it can be quite onerous, but it's so imperative that we do it ultimately. And for companies that wish to go down that route, with friends' companies, and just for free, they'll ask me like, "Farakh, I've been asked to do the work out the carbon calculator and do some sort of CBAM accreditation. What do I do? How the F do I start this? I haven't got a clue." And I'm like, right, okay, how serious are they about doing it? For example, is the board aligned? Do they want to do it actually? So there's so many questions and so much nitty gritty, but it's quite difficult if a company just comes to it from zero, but with good intent, they can make it happen. But sometimes it's just done as a sticker, as you say, and it's not necessarily the way forward. And also then the public loses faith in what we do. Because, let's say the way I present, a lot of my time I have to convince people that I'm not the devil. But you can only do that by talking to them or being involved with them.
Yeah, and you need the time. This is the thing, because it's a real problem and a real world problem and a global problem, like a world problem. So the complexity, the variables, the amount of information, the concepts that you need to understand just as a foundation before you then start building on like, okay, this is the situation. this is the kind of thing that we need to do. How do we start swapping things around?
Exactly.
There's so much that you can't do that in a soundbite or
honestly,
a pitch.
I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly having to read papers. I'm constantly having to educate myself on new ideas. And, I'm like, okay, so I was asked by the Prime Minister and President of Kazakhstan. They are he's running a referendum to ask the country whether they should invest in nuclear power. Mm-hmm. The reason he's asking that referendum, and I didn't know this, but they asked my opinion, mm-hmm. and I gave it to them. But the reason he's asking this, and I didn't know until I looked into it, that the north of Kazakhstan was basically used as a test site by the communists,
Soviets.
By the Soviets, for X amount of years, mm-hmm. however close to a population center, mm-hmm. all the problems with that, and now, I may not necessarily 100% agree with nuclear energy, but I do agree with zero emissions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the way he's doing it was sympathetic, and it really showed that he was thinking about where they wanted their country to go, and that he was.
And that's a substantive question.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's got something to it.
Yeah, exactly, and. Can you imagine us being asked that?
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare. The papers would just be filled with frivolity. Yeah. Nobody actually giving you any information.
Exactly.
Loads of people just go, no, my flag, no, my flag, exactly. This colour, wear this colour.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, that... So, I complimented him on that choice. But I am constantly learning about new things. And through that, I ended up then having to look in, can we make hydrogen from heavy water, blah, blah, blah. Heavy water is like a hydrogen extra molecule. But, it's part of nuclear production. Sorry, segment, tangent. But, so I was looking into that. So that's a completely new aspect I hadn't even thought about before until this came up. So I'm constantly having to try and keep up to date. And I always tell you, if I don't know something, I don't know it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, not my bag, don't know it, or I will find out. But I think finding people in business who are willing to say they don't know something is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I think you've always got to be learning, and in a work environment, put your hand up when you don't know something, and just be straight. It's fine. Or don't say anything at all.
Yeah. Well, it's like the kind of just stop oil thing of like, end fossil fuels now, which is right. It's what we have to do. And it's a great demand to make. But the nuance within that is, certain stuff will have to run because we have to get the energy to make the energy.
Well, look, okay. With the just stop oil, okay? So I'm not burning legacy hydrocarbons. Okay, I agree we shouldn't be doing that. Mm-hmm. However, when those protesters stuck themselves to roads, they were using chemicals that are derived from hydrocarbons. Mm-hmm. We'll always need hydrocarbons for the chemical element. We don't necessarily need to burn them to release a legacy carbon, but we will need them for chemicals. Mm-hmm. It's a fact. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was ironic that they're sticking themselves to the road using something which is from the oil industry. And I don't even know if they were aware of that or not at the time.
I would imagine some of them will be.
I'm sure they will. Of course, some of them are. But at
the same time, they're also wearing clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
Nylon, synthetics,
polymers. Exactly. They're all wearing sports clothes, which are made of nylon. Yeah, exactly. So, I'm not belittling their protest. And I think, what they've done is, they've raised awareness for something, no matter whether they've done it correctly or incorrectly is not my point. Is not my. Well, I'm not educated enough to be able to say how they've done it. It's not my bag. I wouldn't pretend to be. But it's a thing. Understand it, but do you understand the nuances of it? Because we will always need hydrocarbons. We're always going to need mining. We're always going to need farming. These are facts. Everything we touch, interact with, wear, only comes from two sources. Only comes from either mining or farming. And in mining, I include hydrocarbons. That's it. That is it. So my principle is that we just do those things better. Because we are going to always have to do them in some form. And we can't get away from it. And, that pragmatism is sometimes lost, I think, when you try to make a blanket statement or argument to people about why they should or shouldn't do something. There are nuances. There has to be. It's not just to do this and move on.
Yeah. Which, again, I mean, it's a very popular neoliberal idea, but personal responsibility, it's not our job. It's our job to educate if we're being educators, but it's not our job to educate everyone. We can't, you can't physically do that anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So the individual has a certain amount of responsibility that they need to look into stuff, and not just in their favourite branded newspaper or whatever, but actually look at stuff. Look at things that are written by academics, universities, or other people who, if you think that's going to be too complicated, something that's a trusted explainer.
Yes, exactly.
And get various different points of view.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I would be the first one to say that I'm not an expert at anything, really. I have a very broad knowledge base, but it's not that deep. But I can understand how things connect. But yeah, I mean, if I need information, I go to academic papers, several sources, etc. But you've got to inform yourself, but you've also got to know when you don't know something. You've got to be honest with yourself and understand that there's a hole in your understanding or a gap in your understanding. Sorry, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. So, Leeds has declared a climate emergency. That's another excuse for me to talk about climate change. The city itself has accepted it and is acting on it. So as workers within Leeds, within your own work, obviously your work is about mitigation, adaptation and awareness raising, and that's designed into the business. So obviously it's a part of how you work, and it's a huge, climate change as a subject affects your work massively because it's decided the type of work that you do.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think rather than looking at that, maybe sort of discussion within the company, what are the kind of solutions that you're coming with? Obviously, there are a lot of things that have been tried or been proved successful or whatever. Are you just sorting through all the solutions for a particular client and then putting it on?
I'm going to really piss some people off now because this is a Leeds thing. Right, so I was at a climate summit just up the road, literally, the Great Hall, which is 100 yards from where we're standing, sitting, sorry. So I was at a climate summit there, and I asked, they were talking about there not being enough solutions, not being enough money, not being enough this. The mayor of West Yorkshire was there, several academics, and I had to say to them, I said, I'm sorry, but there are answers, this is some time ago, but there are answers to everything that you've said. I'm 500 yards down the road. I've sent you all emails over the last 6 months, and none of you have got back to me. What's that about? So, the academics actually interact with me, engage with me, and I've been working, not necessarily closely with them, but engage with them through the Priestley Institute and Bragg Institute here at the university. But West Yorkshire Mayor, now, there have been several occasions when I have, I'm not speaking to a politics or as an individual, but I have offered solutions that I know work, proven, and because they're not necessarily in the zeitgeist of what they want to publicise, they haven't taken them up. And these are environmental solutions that make a difference. There's a product Is
there an initial capital spend for these that they need to make, or is it just cost savings?
No, that is. Yeah. However,
the savings are
there
quite
are
obvious.
efficiencies.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll give you one example. One product that we use or work with that we're launching into the mining and agri sector is it increases efficiency by 18%, and within 24 hours or 48 hours reduces carbon emissions by 30% of any diesel engine. Any diesel engine across the board.
Yeah.
Works with marine, works with terrestrial, works with aviation.
Yeah.
Although aviation's still in testing, but those two for diesel engines which are used in marine or terrestrially.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's there, and that's a proven that's something that's been there for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's not adopted. Why? Because it's probably not sexy for them. It's not. Oh, we've got all electric buses. That they'd rather go down that route than fix the immediate problem of being able to change what they're using now, because that's not as that's not going to get the column inches.
It's kind of
I believe.
Well, if we want to be not cynical and we want to believe that that's driven by, the feedback that they get sort of politically. Can you still hear it? Okay.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
That's not driven by anything else, but it's driven by basically on the doorstep or the letters they get a sort of saying, oh yes, electric buses, we like those sort of things. There should be much more of those. So it would make sense if they think that's an easy sell to the public and something else would be a bit harder. But at the same time, how much public uproar is there going to be that you spend some money and you save a whole bunch of emissions? And I guess there's fuel efficiency.
Well, that's the point. No,
so you're going to save a huge amount
on
your fuel bill.
Yeah.
Which at a time when the bills are
honestly, it's one of these things where you can't understand why they don't adopt them when these solutions are available, and I think that has to do a lot. Okay, so let's say Central Asian countries, they're all over it. They get it, right? Or I won't even say Central. Other countries, other jurisdictions get the wins because they want to fix stuff there and then.
Yeah.
Because they know they have to continue.
Yeah.
But, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not somebody who believes 100% electrification. I mean, I think hydrogen engines are the way. That's just my personal idea, but there you go. Yeah, it's interesting. But is that because of our culture, do you think? Or is that because it doesn't get the column inches? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting.
I'm not the person in that position to make that decision.
I think somewhere within that, like from my experience of being in those sort of places, that we know this won't fly with a decision maker somewhere. So it's either this will scare the public or so-and-so won't have that or won't let us do that. And they'll be the actual reasons why. Yeah,
I mean, because, it's like the sort of thing, if you don't want to say, okay, we're going to continue using diesel engines, etc., then I can see why you would say, because we're not going to continue using diesel engines, we wouldn't use this product. But
we will
until
be
you transfer,
yeah.
you should at least be doing something to get that simple win.
Yeah.
And I mean, 30% reduction in GHG emissions is not
huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's like nearly a third, or
pretty much a third. Yeah, pretty much a third. Yeah, exactly, and that's the minimum.
Yeah.
So adoption. Oh, in fact, the adoption and the mitigation, these things are important, but I guess these are societal aspects and things that in the UK, I feel, are very specific to UK environment. Working with local government in the UK is basically an uphill struggle, whereas overseas, I've had a meeting with people like that.
Do you think that's because they're younger nations? Like
Potentially, no. That's actually a very
demographically.
no. That's actually a very valid opinion. It could be that could be it.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Yeah.
It could be because they. Well, yeah, no, that's actually a valid point. That's a valid point. But then,
I mean,
surely
supposedly we're an
if
information-rich country.
But wait, hold on. If we've been doing it more, if we think about time, if we've been doing it more, we should be better at it. Right?
In theory, yeah.
Yeah, in theory, if you've been doing something longer, you've kind of got the critical parts worked out, right? So you would expect the new places to look at it and maybe be making the mistakes.
But all our, since, I mean, I won't say the 80s. I think it's very much a 90s thing and a back end of the 90s. Like, all of the efficiencies, all of the innovation, everything has been designed around your initial energy coming from hydrocarbons and from oil and gas. So they've got really, really efficient, did. I don't know whether that efficiency is still there, but really, really efficient at using oil and gas. I think remodeling those maybe that's the thing. It's a bit too complex. Rather than, it's that sort of you've travelled too far down one road kind of thing.
But just because you've done that, look, it is a climate emergency, all right? They say 1.5 degree change. Look, it's going to be 2 to 3. That's
we're going to rip through 1.5
change.
Yeah.
That's systemic world change, right? That will change jet streams. There's all sorts of ramifications of a temperature change.
All the food that we grow won't be able to grow in the places it grows.
It's going to be. I don't think people
No, they have got no idea. They haven't got a clue.
I get it, and I also understand now there's something called climate anxiety.
Yeah,
and that's because
and grief.
Yeah, of course, but it. Yeah, it's that thing. Look, we can actually make a difference. We can do little wins. If we get the little wins, okay, then we can implement larger changes. But there's no. I come back to this pragmatic approach to fixing a problem. What can you do now? And if you have the solution, why don't you implement it? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out into the ether.
No, well, I mean, that's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is, and if I could fix it, I would.
So just on this for a bit longer, do you have any winning algorithms or anything of okay, so our solution's going this way, so such and such company wants to do this, we can have a small win here which will give an immediate return, and then if they're happy with that, then we sort of scale up to, or is it what do they want to do, and then we try and deliver
because
that?
You see, what happens is, so I have companies that approach me to help them do qualify for certain. I think it's called CBAM. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's basically a European tax on the carbon which is emitted per product, I think.
Right.
Okay. I could be wrong, but so if they want to import products, they will have to start paying a carbon tax.
Yeah.
Therefore they need a certification in the UK to say it produces this much carbon or it doesn't, right? To be able to import into Europe. So we had a company who came to us, and we're still kind of discussing with them that they wanted to understand the CBAM thing and get it worked through and do the stuff. So we went back to them, gave them quite a straightforward idea of what it would cost and how one would go about it. Now, we said to them, actually, because you're part of a bigger European group, you should be reporting on these certain statistics. You have over X amount of employees, therefore you're a large company, therefore you should be reporting on X, Y, Z. And because their board at the top level isn't aligned to be able to make those decisions, essentially the response that came back was relatively off the record from them, well, off the record from them actually, was we're just going to wait until we get a fine and then we'll fix it. They've already done that with something else.
Cost benefit.
They're just going to wait until they get a fine. Yeah. Wait till they get £1 million fine and then they'll fix it.
Yeah.
And until then, they're just not going to bother.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, the sort of thing in international relations where it's like countries aren't moral actors. Neither are businesses. They're there to make money, and like legally and essentially, because without the income, without the profit, there's no business.
But they have to have that societal understanding
and approval.
That's just so important.
Yeah.
Apart from when I did my MBA and there was the oil crash, one of the main reasons I didn't go back to the oil and mining industry, was because of their imperialist attitude towards the world and its people. Through first-hand experience, working around the world, seeing implementation, seeing the way they treat their staff, seeing the way they treated local staff that work for them, the disparity between those two things. It didn't sit well. So if you like, now I'm a bit more of a poacher turned gamekeeper to a certain extent. But for whatever you do, if you don't put societal impact is part of your proposition, you're not getting it. I just, it's really important that be it a government, be it a business, it matters. What you do matters. Down the line, you might just be selling widgets, for example, whatever. But actually, are you doing that the best way you can? Yeah, you do it to make money. Fine. And maybe if you do it in an environmental way, make a little less money now, you probably sell more because you're being honest about it. Or at least if you're a company, you say, yeah, this is where we are, this is our baseline now. It's not great. We are producing X amount of carbon. We're offsetting what we can. But this is what we're doing to move forward, and this is what we're doing to change. I believe that the society, or should I say the general public, or your customers, will take that on board. And it's having that eye on the future, you know? Because greenwashing has ruined, the perception of greenwashing has ruined when we actually do stuff positively. I don't know, all we can do is what we personally do.
Yeah.
So hence, I can't change the way local councils work. Right? I can't do anything about that. No. But I know that if I present them with, let's say, an answer or a suggestion or a solution, at least I've done that. Or at least with our company, we're doing what we can, where we're trying to get, like right now, we're working on funding for an island state for some geothermal local power. I mean, okay, as an individual, maybe that's not doing anything, but I know that I'm putting my effort into that just because I know it's the right thing to do. I'd rather work with humanitarian Canadian funders than I would do, other funders. So I can make my personal business decisions around doing what I believe is right, or being what I believe is the correct, informed manner of working. And I'm always willing to be wrong. I'm always been willing to be proved wrong because, how do I learn? But yeah, you kind of like, as an individual, and any individual, your personal decisions can make an impact on the future of the world. But I believe
they do, and that's kind of the crux of the problem, isn't it? It's like everything we're doing every day, and requires energy, and most of us want more energy to do more things, and it's a question of where that energy comes from.
It's that crazy metric, isn't it? That for every God, I'm gonna butcher this now, but there's something along the lines of for every 1,000 photographs you store in the cloud, it's like boiling a kettle.
Yeah,
it's the same power.
Yeah,
we don't even think about it, do we?
No.
Don't even think about the amount of data centers, the amount of cooling, the amount of power that needs just to store our pointless pictures. Well, I mean, my pictures of my cat aren't bloody pointless, to tell you that right now. But to store those pictures that, it's just silly things like that.
For all those pictures of food that are so vital that we need to...
Yeah, exactly. That's all energy. That's energy. And that's where it gets that influence. That's why it's such a nebulous subject, because there are so many interconnected aspects.
Mm-hmm.
It's small things like that that if people realised, maybe they'd save, if they reduce the amount of pictures they were saving on a cloud, there we go. That would make a massive difference, and it would do cumulatively.
But it's our understanding as well of where our world comes from. Okay, so the house that you're in, the clothes that you're in, the food that you eat, and if you're taking it from an energy perspective, it's like, okay, well, where did the energy come from to get the materials to build the house, and then for you to live in the house, buy the house, have the clothes, or just your energy for me to come out this morning, it's like, whatever I've had for breakfast,
where's it come from?
Produced,
exactly.
And energy had to go into that to produce it, to bring it to me.
And where did it? Because then you've got like the scope 3 version of that is where did that originally come from? What had to happen in some other country that you're completely unaware of for that to get, for that granola to be on your plate?
Yeah.
How did it get there?
Yeah. And those Ethiopian coffee beans.
Exactly. It all matters. And so that's why I think when companies or individuals approach this subject, it can seem onerous and it can seem like there's just too much for me to fix, therefore I won't fix anything. I'll just continue doing what I'm doing. But it's those small wins. We can do things. We can do small wins that will make a difference. And if we take into consideration our impact just generally, that even just leave alone, I'm not even talking about the marketing aspect of the wins, the wins within your own company's culture will matter, because the people who come and work with you, for you, will feel better about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's massive.
And it's something that they can contribute to actively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something that can help you give meaning to your work. Besides the low pay for many people, the crisis in work is, why am I doing, what's the point?
Oh, yeah.
What is the point of me doing it? Oh, it's a job, it pays me this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but what am I making? What is the product? And what does the product do? The amount of people in the world who are just making landfill,
Well, that it's, what the solution for, I've got a solution for that as well, with the landfill. You can get, X amount of energy from waste to energy plants, and you can get water, and you can get raw building materials. So why aren't there any waste to energy plants? I know it seems ridiculous, but you would think at every landfill you'd have at least one waste to energy plant.
But it means someone's got to invest in it.
Yeah.
And if the government's not going to give me free money, I'm not going to spend my money on it.
Yeah. Although,
even though I could potentially make money out of it, but I don't really have that profit. That takes work.
This is the interesting thing, it's like, okay, so one of the companies I work with, so their investment model is specifically based on states that can't necessarily afford renewable technology to be able to have renewable technology. Okay, so waste to energy plants, solar, etc. They do work with PPAs, so buyback agreements, etc. But it's so that they will provide all the capital investment to put that solar plant in, and then the state will just keep it, right? Now that model's brilliant, but I don't see why we can't have. We have the technology here in the UK for so many angles, so many projects, and we just don't do it. And I don't see why we should have to be on the same level as something which is being invested in Kenya or Solomon Islands or whatever to be able to achieve these engineering pragmatic solutions that can fix where our problems are now.
Yeah, well, our focus is on putting all our political energies into last century's technology, like more North Sea oil and gas.
Yeah, exactly.
And where you've got, as much as there's all this small boats nonsense, like, oh, let's make it all about this. It's like, at the same time, you have got people leaving this country in droves. We are de-skilling. They are basically, like, getting rid of all the skills, reducing all the wages. Like, it's like running down a company. It's like asset stripping a country.
Yeah.
And we are going to need people with those skills. And not just like, it's like, oh, well, we'll just educate people. We need people with working experience of, like, how does that theory apply in real world practice?
Well,
and
this is where your just energy transition effect comes in, because it is that societal aspect of change, but it's just, God, I could go on. Should we just go on a massive political rant now? I'm not going to do that. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but it is a massive subject. That's the
No, but it is. You can't deny it. All you can have control over is your actual actions.
And even that's to a limited degree, because, again, there are societal pressures. Like, if you just, I'm going to go vegan and not travel anywhere, I'm just going to walk everywhere, and I'm just going to grow veg in my garden, you'll get pushback to that. Like, people will think you've gone crazy. They've turned into a bloody hippie. And there is a lot of societal force. Like, one of the things that I was saying for a while, I think if change does happen and does come, where it's going to come from now is peer pressure. And it's by example. It's like, if you can do something that's more successful than what people are doing in the carbon economy, and they can see that you're happier and that you're healthier, your bills are lower or whatever, then they'll adopt it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, we all had to be trained into sort of keeping up with the Joneses and stuff, and it's a tendency that's there, but it's one that's really
agreed. It's just, I was thinking about it this morning about the sort of, God, we're so convinced that we need extra shit. You just need stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't.
And you need new versions of the stuff you've already got.
Exactly.
It's like, is the washing machine still working? Let it run then.
It's fine. It's fine. It doesn't have to be AI. It doesn't have to be AI. It doesn't have to be an AI washing.
It doesn't have to be connected to Amazon and tell them everything that I'm washing.
Yeah, exactly.
How much it weighs.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
So I'm going to go into social media. So what I generally look at here is how much time you have to spend on it and whether you think it's actually valuable. Do you get the return on investment you want from it? Or is that a job for somebody else?
It's kind of a job for someone else, but the social media thing, I do my LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Just to keep up with mates. Have you
got any clients out of that?
Yeah. But usually on LinkedIn, I only connect with people that I've met in person. Normally, it's just useful to keep up with people I already know. But I'm not a massive social media user, or should I say, what do they call them? Social media consumer. I'm not. That's just, I can't be asked. I'm just not interested. If anything, I just look at cuddly animals and cats and dogs. That's about it, really. Honestly, yeah.
I was saying to someone, this has been like one of my. I'll get an idea in my head and then I'll sort of like just tell various people, like producing memes. But I was, oh God, have I lost the point again? I was thinking about. What were we
social media, and you were telling someone an idea. Cats.
Nice. If you'd have told a television executive in the 80s or 90s, I have got a winning TV program idea for you, like cats. What are these cats doing? You mean like the musical? No, just cats.
There.
Just cats.
Just there.
Just films of cats. Just that. And how long is this program? Well, ideally, 12 hours. They'd be like...
And you just have it on your TV.
Yeah, they'd be like, you're insane, get out of my office. And then you'd be like, no. But if anyone had bought that, they would have been the richest person in TV
well
history.
done, well done. If they patented that. So we're the only people that can produce video of cats. Yeah, cats are more interesting than people most of the time. That's just my personal proclivity.
So I'm going to jump into the other two questions, and then we might come back to whatever, or we might go on another random
Whatever
tangent.
you want, mate.
So I'm going to start with the UBI first, and then come to the change question.
Okay.
So, if there was a universal basic income, how do you think that might affect your work? You can look retroactively back over your career as well if you want, but I guess where you are at the moment, it wouldn't necessarily change too much. You're running your own business, you're in a cause that you believe in, that you want to do, so you kind of doing what you want to do.
I mean, I've always thought that this isn't going to be broadcast, is it? I'm kidding. But, normally, for my last PA, I said, right, what do you want to earn? How much do you want? And I told her not to undervalue herself. I think, if you pay someone a decent rate, I mean, I'm one of these people that my very first job was cleaning school after school when I was 16 as a school cleaner. I actually got paid quite well. I can't remember how much it was, but I was able to buy a few CDs or albums and save up for a car. But that I kind of work ethic wise, if I'm getting paid to do something, I do it as well as I can. But a universal sort of basic income it's just a given, I think.
I think it's a climate solution as well, because it's not just because it's an energy crisis ultimately at its core. It's not just about giving people more stuff to do. It's like, to change everything we need everyone kind of thing. But also, a lot of you can just sit down and just look at the view, do less because, you don't need to fly to Hawaii for a sustainability conference.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. No, although I'd like to. But anyway, I think it's just it's just a standard human right, and I think
I mean, the money, it's pretty obvious at this point that the money is basically just all going to the top.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not an expanding middle class.
No, it's not. I mean, it's a completely different conversation. The inequality is something which it really does drive me nuts. And having been someone who's been on benefits, having been someone who's qualified disabled, someone who, dealt with sort of, I guess, some issues in the past, and mental health as well.
I mean, the whole health crisis was years of not working.
I mean, I get it. Yeah. I get it. And I think that there should be a universal basic income for people, because people don't have that control over.
Yeah, and I think the universal aspect is so vital to it. Not only because you don't have to do the means testing, but also because it's like, we all get it. We're all part of it. And it's like, nobody's getting special treatment. Everybody's getting something.
When I've had to do PIP assessments, right, in the past, I've had to basically justify why, I have to justify that I actually did have cancer.
Yeah.
Right? I have to justify that I have a physical implant on my back.
And over and over again. Not once, and it's now on your record. Let's
not even mention when I have to talk about mental health stuff. It's like, do you know how bad it is for your mental health to have to go and justify your mental health? Because obviously, it brings up.
Oh, so do you have problems? Yes, let's see.
Yeah,
what is your problem exactly? There's always mistrust.
Exactly. Even if the individuals aren't necessarily in that, let's say, Victorian manner that you just portrayed, but even if the individual, for the individual that's having to basically justify their existence, you know, you have to say, yeah, I'm depressed. Yeah, I haven't really been working. Yeah, I have a problem getting dressed. Yeah, I have a problem doing this. Yeah, I can't open mail. Yeah, I can't. So based on that, we'll decide whether you know, are valid enough to be able to have some sort of support. That process, you're more likely to have some sort of mental health incident because of having to do that than you are if you hadn't have had to do that.
Yeah, it's like you must humiliate yourself. It's part of the process. And if you want any of this, then you just have to go through the humiliation.
Yeah.
But it's also like, yeah, but you made it humiliating on purpose so that I don't want to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I you know, having been through that system, it's something that I understand is very, very difficult. And yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example of it.
Please.
I've used it a few times. So, and both of them are from within lockdown. So, 2 government websites that I used during lockdown. One was Companies House, and the other one was DWP Universal Credit. Guess which one was really, really easy to use, navigate, go through, helps all the way through. Yeah,
I have to do it all the time. So right.
So and it just is like, it's by design. It's like, it's by design. This is awful by design and for a reason. And it's like, I get it.
Well, it's like criminalising mental health. In fact, you've got mental health issues. You feel like you know, it's virtually like being criminalised because of it. You know, it's like saying, well, you have to prove to me that you feel sad.
Yeah.
What, will you be happy if I'm hanging by a bloody door handle?
Yeah.
Would that make you believe me?
Yeah. It's like I saw a thing about people.
It just drives
people
being
depressed. It's like they're not. They don't have to prove that they're being sad, because most of the time they're trying to pretend that they're being happy.
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. And as someone who does suffer from depression and has mental health issues, it's, you know, it's not exactly your fault. You know what? It's trying to give the idea as why what has made you down. Well, we all know it's like, well, it's kind of everything, isn't it? You know, just how it all adds up.
How long have you got?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
So let's do the change question. So,
what was the change question?
So this is 3 changes. So if you could change any 3 things about your work, so you can be pragmatic or you can be fantastical about them. But if you could change any 3 things, what would you change?
People being more sincere. So just being more honest and straightforward about their situation and or who they are when talking about ideas and things like that. I think just being straight would make a big difference. I would say that. It's really quite a difficult question.
Well, again, I think as well, this is difficult when you run your own business. And the first time I came across this, I was talking to a co-op, and they were like, "Well, if we don't like anything, we can change it." I was like, "Well, that makes it."
I mean, it does. I mean, if I could have more time to do the stuff, on a personal level, if I could have more time to do the stuff that I ignore and procrastinate about.
Is that sort of the admin side of business?
Yeah, the kind of the boring stuff that
paperwork
that I have to do. That's the second one. I'm really stretching now. The third one, maybe having more. I would like to have more in-person meetings, although it's very difficult because, like this morning, I was talking to someone halfway around the world and someone halfway around the other side of the world. So I don't know.
I mean, would you like more of your work to be more local, more locally based, or do you like having that?
No, I think I just take it for granted about working internationally. That it's not necessarily a barrier for me. But in the past, I guess I've, like we used to have a place in Tashkent in Uzbekistan, like, because it was just, we would be going there relatively often to meet people in the general area, so it just made sense. So would I like to work locally? I think I would like to have, if I could have a local impact, that would be cool. Because I love Yorkshire. I couldn't play cricket for Yorkshire. I wasn't born here, but I love Yorkshire, and if I could make a difference to Yorkshire, that would be a massive win for me. But I'm happy to try and make a difference halfway around the world, because at least it's doing something.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. Again, it's a cost-benefit analysis thing, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, you could take the approach of, I'm not going to look at anything internationally. I'm just going to focus on the UK. But also, by focusing internationally, if you can get a win where you're like, I'm influencing a power station or a power generation plant that's going to last
25 years.
1-2 generations. Like, that's a huge impact. I mean, do you work... I mean, you can never... It's really...
Well, I'll tell you what I was trying to do, actually. So we're doing this carbon calculator for this manufacturing company, and something that I couldn't do. So I work with a fintech company that does ethically sourced carbon credits. So they're double gold standard or something along those lines, so there's no question about greenwashing, etc. Now, in the UK, we don't actually have... currently, I believe, an accreditation system which is similar for our carbon credits. So what I wanted to do for this company was they can offset 10% of their carbon, because they're a base manufacturing company. So their carbon output is quite high. I wanted them to be able to offset it in Yorkshire. Because I thought that, that would be a win for the marketing, it would be a win for the company. They could say, look, this is a project we're helping with.
Yeah.
And I could do that, but I couldn't do it through the gold standard, which would mean there would be no question about greenwashing.
Right.
And that was quite interesting. Because the UK we do have standards, but they're not the same as the internationally recognised standards. And so that separation, that's something that actually I'm kind of working on at the moment. We've got in the process of working with, being able to do that sort of local credits for local companies type thing. If we go to Royston Vasey for our, inspiration. So local carbon credits because I mean, if it wasn't for carbon credits, I believe we'd have functioning hydrogen engines everywhere. But because we had carbon credits, people were able to put the money into that instead of R&D over the last 20 years. So, it's something that I've always been against, but kind of I'm slowly buying into it, but only with certain accreditations, because then I know that it's a solid proposition and not just some sort of Ponzi scheme or some rubbish.
Yeah, a boondoggle.
Good word.
It is difficult, and you do have to. Let's take the nuclear one as an example again. You didn't say necessarily where you fall on that, but you had your reservations about it. But it is that thing of, is it going to work, and is it going to be better than the alternatives? And it's kind of like, okay, do it. It's that thing of, yes, it will do harm, but it's going to do less harm than the thing that we were going to do.
Yeah.
So that is way better. But we want to get, that's very much a war mentality of throw the pots and pans of whatever we've got. You want to get beyond
it. Smells of elderberries.
Yeah, you want to get beyond throwing bits of rock and twig at the barricade to being in the keep and, being fine to have the drawbridge down. And
exactly. And sort of understanding, it's just about, it's that risk understanding, but on the whole, what would you rather? What would you rather? Because if we don't do something, we are going to be in a lot of trouble. Give it 10 years, you know.
We are.
Yeah, oh no, this is it. You know, it's just that maybe because it's not affecting us directly, we're not doing anything about it.
But that's the thing. That is a discourse that I really want to get us out of, because it is this sort of, you know, even now we still talk about it like the coming effects. It's like, we have to talk about what's happening now.
Yeah.
Because we're in it now.
Well, it's so interesting, the agricultural thing that we also work with. So their rainfall has been unprecedented. They've been having all sorts of problems, and they're talking about when they're planting, which they call drilling, and all this stuff. And it all affects. It is happening in the UK immediately, right now, and it's only going to get worse. And I remember when I was studying, it was like, you know, you would look at what a 10-year storm event or a 20-year storm event, and you would say that you could have them one after the other, but that would mean a span of 40 years because the two 20-year storm events were next to each other, but it was on either side. But that's just all out the window now. Yeah. I mean, it really is. You look at the effect we have just on our weather systems. I mean, you know, if you can't see what's going on, you're missing it, you know. And I was once asked this. Someone said to me, "Oh, you know, can you point to the carbon in the atmosphere?" They actually said that. Well, where is carbon?
You know when you point to the air.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, it's everywhere. Yeah. Like it used to be
Can you point to the oxygen you're breathing?
Yeah, it used to be like 200 parts per million. Now it's 400 parts per million. Is that enough of a statistic for you? You know what I mean? Is that enough? I mean, don't quote me on those numbers because they're probably relatively inaccurate, but close enough.
Yeah, well, we passed 420. Like last I saw was 422. But
there you go.
Like the high reading or whatever. But yeah, and it's like, what do you think? When David Attenborough was making those documentaries 30 years ago saying, oh, we're destroying the planet and we're killing all the animals, do you think things have got better since then or worse? Or do you think he was just lying the whole time?
Yeah, is everyone just lying to you? You know, the very fact that people publicly still deny climate change is fucking unbelievable. Sorry for swearing.
I think every one of those people are paid.
Oh, of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are. I mean, I put a statistic on my LinkedIn at the end of the year or the beginning of this year, which was about the percentage of renewables that oil and gas companies have actually invested in over their entire sort of that complete turnover or revenues. And it was like 1.4%. It's just, it was a crazy small amount. But you would think every oil or energy company, in inverted quotes, all they're doing was renewable. Yeah. You know, you would think from their marketing. Yeah. And the reality is very, very different. You know, but you've got to do something. But I mean, I can get on my climate horse, but, you know.
Well, that's the danger as well when you get into the subject. I mean, this is another reason why I wanted to look at things through the lens of work. Because if you're talking to people about Brexit and COVID and stuff, just their personal opinions, you're going to go all over the place.
Of course, as we have done.
But I think you get that extra lens of reflection. You know, most of us spend most of our life in work. And it's very much put to one side as this sort of different place for a lot of people. And it's like, okay, but you're a different person in and out of work to a degree. And there are certain things that your job or your role or your pay expect you to believe. Do you believe that all the time? How does that bleed over into your personal life?
This is where that societal, cultural, corporate culture comes into it, is quite important. Okay, for example, I believe that when I don't know if I should say this, but fuck it.
You can always put it out.
All right, no, it's fine. No, but I believe that when you join a company, I work with graduates, right? So final year students, master students. When you join a company and you have to go through your training for professional behaviour, you have to know about don't touch someone on the ass type training. Okay. Well, you should also have to have sustainability and climate training at the same time. So that in your workplace you behave professionally, But that should also include, recycle that paper, or do you need to print that? Just simple things like that. And that would help in the corporate culture, I believe, would make a difference. In fact, I'm working on something right now, which hopefully is down that line. But yeah, it's that sort of training, that sustainability, climate awareness training, should be just as important as your professional behaviour or training that you have, or your HSE training that you have at work. It should be just the same, on the same page.
I think, understanding where you are, how it works, is an essential part of being civilized, if that's what we want to be,
And industry, I think, has to take the lead on making the societal change. Unfortunately,
because government won't.
Yeah. I mean, look, this something that I'm a proponent of, that I believe for quite some time since I found it out, and I only found this out about 3-4 years ago. This idea of the quadruple helix. Okay, so have you heard about it?
No.
Okay, so the quadruple helix, developed by this chap, some PhD dude in the Netherlands, and it means that for true societal change, you have to apply a quadruple helix thinking. That means that government, society, industry, and academia have to work unsiloed together to create true societal change. If you want true societal change to come across, that's how you have to do it. You have to implement this quadruple helix, where these 4 aspects are basically desiloizing and partnering, and then you can actually get and implement societal change. And without that, it won't happen. Now, at the moment, we've got academia, we've got elements of society, and we've got elements of industry all working together in the UK. But arguably the most important person isn't in the room, and that needs to change. They need to understand that aspect if we are going to change for the better, to help do the damage limitation of the environment. That needs to be implemented, and without that partnering, it won't happen. It just will not happen.
Well, I mean, the amount of times when I've discussed this on the podcast, and it's, people will go to their personal responsibility thing of the light bulbs in their bags and stuff, but most people are like, I want to do more, and the only way that we can do more is if policy lets us. Like, there has to be policy changes, there has to be support, and it's this fake sort of powerlessness and fake neutrality that they put out, and you see it both sides of the Atlantic. No matter who's in power, what colour, it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly do anything about that. Somebody should do something about this. It's like, aren't you in charge?
Yeah, exactly.
You're in charge. You're somebody who can.
Yeah, one can't we possibly think about the children? Well, no. You know what I mean?
I don't have any. You don't seem to care about yours, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of... Yeah, no, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. Yeah, you are in charge. Fucking fix it, please. Or at least work with us to help you fix it.
Yeah. Lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because we have those that quad helix. We have three partnerships that are effectively everyone's working together in that area, right? And government just needs to oh God, I feel like I'm hammering government. Do you know what?
I think that's the general position of everyone.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily the route that I want to go down.
Yeah,
do you understand what I mean? Because I do have quite deeply held political views, but being negative about something I usually feel doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So in that partnership aspect, I think if we could partner properly with government at a proper level, where they're not trying to dictate what policy they want, but they're trying to be open about what policy they need to achieve the vision, be it climate change, be it net zero, be it digitization, be it adoption of AI, whatever it is, if they worked with these three other areas, it would make a difference. I did some work for some a white paper thing recently that was for policy change, and it was like, okay, what's the thing that we know will probably be able to happen, not what's the grand idea that would fix it all.
Yeah.
We had to essentially say, right, what do we think will actually be implemented?
Yeah.
Let's forward that idea instead of the overarching grand vision.
Yeah.
Because we knew that because it's going into a white paper, what would be more likely to win?
Yeah.
I would say what I do on a daily basis is put together partnerships, join dots, and kind of bring in aspects from different ideology, different companies, and kind of say, hey, look, have you thought about using this over here? Because that would work really well over there with these people, and there's probably money from there. And then, boom, you've got a little, thing going, a little idea. But yeah, it's that partnering. It's that partnering which is so, so important. Which is why, like, in Central Asia, I know I've talked about Central Asia quite a bit, but in different areas around the world, it's a lot easier to partner with the government because they understand that they need the help.
Yeah, they know that they don't know everything.
Exactly. I didn't want to kind of say that, but yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
I want to do, so this is the part where I kind of throw it over to you to do socials, and where can people find you, or where can people find the business?
So True Green Energy Group, we're on like the internet and LinkedIn, and just, drop me an email. You will probably attach it. So
I'll put in some
show notes. You
links,
just email me at info@truegreenenergygroup.co.uk. Yeah, no problem.
So this is the bit
but please don't have a go at me for getting my numbers wrong about certain statistics, because it's not my fault. I just have got a really bad memory.
Yeah,
sorry.
We don't. We have Google, but it would interfere with the recording.
Exactly. I'd have to get my phone in my hand. I'm not bothered.
Don't come here with your richer information correcting us.
Exactly.
This is the point where I kind of throw it over to you to talk about anything that you want to talk
about.
No,
do you know what? It's been really interesting.
I want to end on an optimistic note, because obviously, you mentioned having your own struggles with depression and stuff, but to a large degree, you're doing something hopeful, optimistic, practical, pragmatic. Have you got like an optimistic story to kind of for the end or something, or reasons to be optimistic, perhaps? Or even like a project that you work on that you think is like a really good project that's really sort of... I'm putting you on the spot.
It's quite difficult because, like,
if you can't, you can't.
Yeah, bound by a lot of NDA stuff.
Yeah.
But
you obviously feel you're making a difference.
I think I would hope.
Yeah.
One of the things that I enjoy. I'll tell you something that actually, on a positive note.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a leader in residence at the University of Leeds Business School, and so I work or talk to a lot of final year students, master's students, and the quality of the graduates or recent graduates, master's students that I've met is phenomenal. And what they're thinking, the way they're looking at their idea of what work is completely different to what it was when I was a graduate. For me, it was like, studied mining engineering, studied geology, and I kind of did it for the love of the subject, and then, got to travel all over the world and do stuff, right? And it was brilliant. It was like living a little Indiana Jones lifestyle. It was great. But for graduates now, they're so much more aware of everything around them, of their impact, of what they want from corporates that they potentially may work for. It's actually inspiring. It's amazing It's amazing to see the quality of what they produce. In fact, when I think about it now, I think, bloody hell, would they let me in? You know, I don't think I'm smart enough to work here. I'll go study here. Should I say? I don't think I'd make the cut to be able to be smart enough to get on courses. I genuinely don't. But
or maybe Leeds is doing such a good job.
Well, no, but they are. What they're producing, honestly. University of Leeds, the people that I've worked with, the students I've worked with, absolutely blow me out of the park. And it's quite inspiring to know that that's coming up. But let's not forget, I think the intake this year or the coming year will be the first intake of the COVID. I kind of call them the COVID kids, which is massively patronising. I apologise, but that intake, they will have had no real exams, like sit down in a hall exams. They'll have no work experience because they weren't able to have it. There's so much that this new cohort will be battling against that I think as employers we have to take into consideration that there will be soft skills that we're going to have to teach them. But I think their resilience will be unbelievable. I think the resilience, the new graduates, is their resilience and how they deal with things is completely different to the way that we did it. With all the pressures that they have, I can genuinely say that I'm inspired by what we're getting, by the upcoming talent, and the way that they think about sustainability and the way they think about the environment is fantastic. And that's across disciplines, that's economic students, business students, marketing students, all of them, not just the environmental guys. I think that's my positive note to everyone.
So thank you very much for doing this.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, it's
my
been
pleasure,
great talking to you.
Enjoyable.
Thank you again to Farakh for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. If you're in Leeds or from Leeds, if you are Leeds, then please be the guest on this show. Yes, I am speaking to you. I still need to find 887 loiners to interview, so being a guest is the greatest help. You'll get free advertising and media experience, and you'll be part of a unique project in our unique city. Whatever you do, I am interested to hear about it. You don't have to be online, and you can even be anonymous if you would like to be. You will enjoy it. Like, share, follow, and subscribe to Working Hours, and please help to support Working Hours financially. Go to patreon.com/Working Hours Pod to give monthly from £1 a month, or go to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/Working Hours to donate any amount that you'd like. It's just a few clicks. It's honestly not difficult. Don't be put off. It's really easy to offer support to the project. And if you have any issues or difficulties, then email me and I'll get back to you. If you're a local business who would like to sponsor one or more episodes, or you would like to pay for any advertising on Working Hours, or if you'd like your locally produced products to be branded with the Working Hours logo so it can be used as merch for the project, especially if it's something physical that can be delivered locally and sustainably, then I would love to hear from you. If your work is work, supporting it, making it happen, making it grow, then maybe you should consider joining up with a unique project that's about examining that very subject. If, for example, you're a recruitment agent or a trade union in Leeds, you should be calling me now to get your name and your own work on this project. Equally, if you're a marketer or a social media marketing manager, why aren't you getting every Leeds client you have to come on this show? You're missing a super easy win. You can email Working Hours at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Work for peace and plan with kindness. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios, Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Go to western-studios.com and use the contact page on the site to drop me a message about either Working Hours or about your own Leeds podcast project. Keep up to date with Working Hours and find out about the other great Leeds podcasts that Western Studios is involved with by following Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Western Studios Leeds is available to learners to help them realise their own podcast projects for only £30 for an hour of audio podcast work or £40 for an hour of video podcast work. Email makemypodcast at western-studios.com with details of your project and what support you want to get your Leeds podcast made. Whatever your podcast question or need, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.
God, I don't know, what's your listenership? Subscriptions, what is it called?
No idea, because it's not. So it's Working Hours podcast. It's just like the downloads. So I'm on about 30 to 40 an episode at the moment. But I don't know who they are.
That's all right.
It's not bad.
Are they local?
The majority of them.
We like to keep it local.
Aye. Well, I mean, it's Leeds focused, so ideally I want most of the listeners in Leeds. But I'm also thinking, the specificity of place is also, that makes it attractive to people. If someone's going to visit Leeds, then put that on and have a listen. It makes it more interesting by being about somewhere particular than if it was just like, ooh, this is about the world.
Oh, we'll go on Simon's podcast and hear Farakh bitch about the government. Brilliant.
Makes a change from me bitching about the government.